Hey there, welcome to Consult the Blind Guy. In today's episode, we're going to cover 10 common problems that you may or may not know about for the blind and visually impaired. We're also going to cover some ways that we can possibly fix some of these situations. If you're new here, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can stay updated on the latest videos and more. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. I hope you'll like this episode.
Disappointed by reality, time to come back, start something new, build up yourself, it's all to you. Stay strong no matter what they say, you keep getting better every day. Hold your head up, never gonna stop, fears and proud, stand up and shout. Stand my ground.
Hey there, today we're covering 10 common problems that you may or may not know about for the blind and visually impaired, as well as some ways that we can solve these issues. Number 1. Answering the phone without caller ID. Why does this suck for somebody that's blind or visually impaired? Well, this sucks because not every handset has a voice caller ID, and not all regular caller IDs are big enough or have the right color setting to be able to be visible to us. And this is especially irritating when we all get so many spam calls these days, whether it's from wannabe social security agencies or your car loan is ready to expire. Problem number 1. Just saying, this is common not only for the blind and visually impaired, but as well as for the sighted, because I know it's a very big annoyance to hear your phone constantly going off from spam calls. Number 2, throwing away things that you didn't see in something else. Whether it's a newspaper that's folded over or a small box that might have a paper or something really lightweight or something like that. It's a common thing for blind to grab like we'll say a postcard envelope, for instance. And sometimes when you get a postcard, somebody might actually slip in an extra note inside of the card. And in some cases, when you go and put that card back into the envelope, you might put it in upside down, and that sheet might slip out the next time you pull it out, and it might have a picture or whatever else on the inside of that card, and then you later throw that card away or the envelope away, and you forgot that there was something else there, and see you later, goodbye, it's gone. Number 3, finding wall outlets. Why is this a problem for the blind and visually impaired? Well, when you really think about it, this is a problem for a lot of people that are visually impaired or blind because, one, unless you know exactly where you're stepping and you know your foot size to an exact measurement, and are able to go from one point to the next point on that exact measurement, you're not going to necessarily know where the wall outlet is. So you're going to have to sit there and feel around until you find the framing of the outlet. Then you have to put your hand up and put your finger over the outlet holes so you know where they are when you go and plug something in. Which brings me to the next one, which is plugging in something to the outlet. Because this is a complication as well, as depending on the outlet having 2 holes, or whether it has 3 holes, or whether it's sitting sideways or upside down. Yes, feeling around on it might necessarily tell you, but not always. Which brings me to the next one. Plugging in cell phones. Why is this a complication for somebody who is blind or visually impaired, you ask? This is a problem because in new cell phones today, compared to like 10-15 years ago, we have these little itty bitty USB-C or HDMI-C or whatever port type you want to call it. Either way, we've gone from something that's about 1.5 inches to something that's about maybe 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. This is a complication because 1, it is small, 2, it's not all that defined on the profile to know whether it's pointing up or pointing down, 3, the phone itself has a recessed section to put that into, and again, it is recessed to the point that you cannot see whether it's facing up or whether it's facing down, which causes a complication to find the hole and then get it plugged into the phone. Which brings me to the next one. As most of you know who are my subscribers, I recently had an issue with my phone because I dropped it and I shattered my screen, so I had to get a replacement. My old phone, the Samsung J7 Perks, was one of the nicer phones that had the removable battery and easy access in the back by the battery of the phone, so you could take the SD card or the SIM card out. The new phone, on the other hand, is a J7 Refine and is a higher quality in the megapixels for the camera and slightly different display setup. And it has a non-removable battery, which means now you have a small little, like 1-inch section that has a little itty bitty pinhole in it that you're supposed to put something into to be able to open up this little compartment, which now holds your SD and your SIM card in one spot. This is extremely hard to open, and it is extremely hard to get your SD and your SIM card to stay in it because it is just laying in there. There's nothing to actually fasten it in there. So when you go to attempt to put it into your phone, it may actually fall out. Which brings me to the next one, which is organizing your room or a home or any location for mobility and functionality, which is one thing that we in the blind community tend to try doing our best at, but sometimes with the situations we have, it ends up not being so well. And some of you know about this because, as you can tell, my background has changed, but yet again, for like the 3rd or 4th time. Why? Because I myself have been reorganizing and moving things so they can be more functional and more mobile for me to be able to use my room and be able to create these videos like this. This is a complication because so many different things that we purchase, whether it's furniture or lighting or whatever, everything has so many different varying in sizes and shapes and stuff like that, which makes things a little bit more hard to organize in a functional yet not too clustered of an area. Brings me to our next one, which is finding resources to maintain complete independence and sustainability. And I say this because not everybody, and I'm not saying just here in the United States, but I'm saying globally, as a blind or visually impaired community, it's hard for us to find resources because not all of us are within metro cities in order to receive the assistance that is available to us. In some cases, like a couple people I know in Australia, they're actually so far away from a city they actually have to fly to get there, to get to the nearest city from their home. And that in itself makes anything for resources very difficult when you have to travel 300-400 miles by a plane just so you can get to your closest town. Then you have situations of, like here in my state of Michigan, for instance, we have some rural transportation, but the rural transportation does have a cost to it. It has a schedule to it and restrictions. With these restrictions, it's a lot more difficult for somebody out in farmland or out in the country to be able to get to a metro town or to go grocery shopping or to get to appointments or different things like that. There is a different complication for a lot of different visually impaired people when it comes to finding resources. It's also difficult for sustainability because a lot of us would absolutely love to be not dependent on government funding or on local resources for learning or doing things that we would love to do on our own. Another problem, and I know this is a problem for many people because I myself am a content creator and I am friends with a few blind and visually impaired content creators, which you can actually see their links down below because they are among my recommended list. You can also find a lot of us over on my Facebook group page, which is Consult a Blind Guy Hangout group. Come on over to Facebook and you can meet the community and chat about the videos and see some of the things that we don't actually post here on the channel. But we as content creators have difficulty with seeing things, and when it's difficult to see things, it's difficult to make content. And for us, it would be nice to have assistive technology built into our DAW or DVW, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation or Digital Video Workstation. I say this because some of them do have little features for accessibility to where you can zoom in per se on a video clip to make it a little bit bigger in the editing tray. But when you're zooming in on that particular clip and you want to edit the clip that is also below it and you can only see one, it makes it very, very difficult to alter that video clip and audio clip at the same time. It makes it difficult to be able to listen to your video if you're using a screen reader to be able to ensure that your text is coming up right. It's difficult to be able to see the small text within the menus. We have to use magnifiers on top of the programs in order to see these functions. It would be nice if there was something a little bit more customizable when it comes to this. Which brings me to our next one. And that is being blind or visually impaired and having to switch between dark mode and high contrast. I say this because I recently upgraded my computer from a Windows 7 Asus computer to a now ROG Zephyrus G15 Asus computer with Windows 10. And when I put some of my programs on here, I use the dark mode or dark theme for everything possible. And if I cannot use a dark mode or a dark theme, I will use an extension or a plugin or a third-party app that is a high contrast display to mask whatever it is that doesn't automatically have a dark mode or dark theme. And recently with this transition of computers, I am on a Slack group, and when I went into Slack, I still had the high contrast theme on my computer, and I turned on dark mode in the Slack. When I did this, the menu on the left hand side actually went to the dark mode like I anticipated, whereas the thread line on the right hand side was all white and very hard to read. And I believed at the time this was because there was something wrong with the program, when in fact it's not the program that had the issue. It was the high contrast theme overriding the dark theme. Because apparently, when you have a dark theme on and you turn high contrast on, whatever is dark now becomes light, which is inverting the original setup. If you turn off the high contrast theme, you have everything in darkness and your text will be in light. If you turn off the dark theme and turn on the high contrast theme, it does the exact same thing. Why does it make such an issue? Well, if you have one on and you don't realize, like for my instance, I went on the Slack. I forgot that I had the high contrast on and I was turning on dark mode. I did not know that by using both that it would invert colors. I believe that this could be fixed very simply by the programs or even by the intelligence of the computer. It should be able to recognize whether or not high contrast or dark mode is on each of the programs or computer itself, and be able to adjust itself accordingly to remain in that dark mode. It seems to be able to do that in some of the programs already, where you could pull them up and it will tell you light mode, dark mode, or follow system. And if you go by follow the system settings, if you have a dark theme on already, it will automatically transfer that dark theme onto whatever program or plugin that you're using. And I don't see why this is not capable for all programs and all pages. And that brings us to the end of the list. Now, what are some of the things that we can do to fix some of these? When it comes down to number one, answering the phone without a caller ID, I believe that the simplest way to fix this would be to have a large print caller ID and a voice caller ID automatic no matter what brand of phone you have. If it's not an automatic feature that is just right there as soon as you turn it on, I think it should be a setting within the phone that you can select it to have a highlighted section in your phone to where it will magnify the caller ID, or make it a high contrast so it's completely dark with white letters, or vice versa, depending on what the person has for their disability when it comes to the vision loss. Because some people can see the dark with white and some cannot, and they see the dark text better with lightness. Either way, there are some minor things that could be done to improve that. Number two, how are we going to prevent throwing away things that we can't see within something else? Well, that I do believe would have to be a little bit more diligence on our part as visually impaired people. We're going to have to double check and triple check and quadruple check to make sure that if we're going to throw something away, that we ensure it's completely empty of anything we wish to save. That's the only solution I can come up with, other than maybe if whoever sent you the item could put like a textile marker on it or something, so you know that, hey, there's a sheet of paper in here with information on it, or hey, here's a small little sticker on the back of this one, so you know, hey, there's a picture in here or something. That brings us to the next one, which is finding and plugging in outlets. To make it easier to find outlets, I don't believe it's going to be all that simple for the blind and visually impaired, other than maybe the possibility of a little LED light for those that can see light to signify that there's an outlet there, whether it's a little white one or maybe a little red one. Putting more of a bevel on the edges of the outlet frame, I'm not quite sure. When it comes to plugging things into the outlet, I believe it should be mandatory that every electrician ensure that when they put their outlets in, that they are all uniform in the direction in which they are installed. No one outlet having the two prongs on the top and the grounding hole on the bottom, and in reverse to have it one on the top and two on the bottom. You know, if you ensure that all of the outlets are facing the same direction, it will make it easier for people to plug things in. It would also be more effective, in my opinion, to have the same style of outlet as well, because I've noticed in some houses you have outlets, like I said earlier, where they're just two-prong with no ground. Then you have a room that might have two or three of them that have a ground. And then you might have another room that has a grounded wire, but it also has an extra setup to where they're sideways rather than facing up or down, or they even have one that is like T-shaped, which I've never seen a plug with a T-shape. So, you know, some of these things need to be taken into perspective by the electrician, in my opinion, or the homeowner, or whoever. It can be very difficult for somebody who cannot see that well to be able to plug things in. How can we make cell phones easier to plug in for the visually impaired and blind? In my opinion, make it so that the port for the cell phone actually is a little bit more defined. Make it squared edge that sticks out just a tad bit. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but just enough to know that, hey, this is where it goes and this is the shape. So you know, okay, you have to have it facing this way and not trying to fumble getting it into a little hole and making sure that it's up or it's down. Oh, changing a room around, well, in my opinion, there's no way we can really make that easier, because it's on us as the visually impaired person to know whether or not the object that we're going to purchase is going to fit in the area we want to use it, or that it is efficient for us to use. You know, I've got a record shelf that's got 12 slats to it. I probably should have got one that had 16 or 20 because I have so many albums. But that's something I thought about after the fact, because I wasn't considering how many I already had. So, you know, it all depends. Every situation's different, but that would be my aspect on it, is to be a little bit more diligent in understanding the size of what it is that you purchase for your furniture and how you're going to lay it out. In the aspect of improving on finding resources, I think this would be a little bit easier to make it so that not everybody has to travel. If, for instance, somebody doesn't have the internet, but they're known by Social Security or Foundation Fighting Blindness or something like that, if they're known by one of those agencies or government entities, they should automatically, in my opinion, be given that courtesy of, hey, we know you're in an area that is inaccessible for mobility to get to these resources. How can we assist you to get them? In the aspect of not having the internet, they can actually call you or be able to assist you with getting transportation, because in some cases, like if you qualify for Medicaid, for instance, they do have programs for like Hope Network and stuff like that that will assist you if you're low income or disabled to get to your appointments and things. So I think they could incorporate a little bit more of that aspect into helping those that are blind and visually impaired. This is one reason that I actually haven't gone into the Association for the Blind in a little while, because I went from being on the city bus route to being out in the country where it is very difficult to get transportation from a rural town into a metro city that is almost an hour away. And then even if I could have gotten the scheduled ride to go, it had a cost to it, and you were limited on the distance and the length of time you were there and all kinds of other stuff. And this, I believe, could be taken care of by maybe incorporating Uber or something else to that aspect, to where it's a dedicated service like they had for the Hope Network to go to your doctor's appointments or something like that. Because going to the association is actually something that's important, because not everybody can make it to an eye doctor or afford an eye doctor, and they can go to like the association or Foundation Fighting Blindness or the National Federation of the Blind, and they can receive those resources to where they can get free eye care, free prescriptions for glasses, mobility training. There's all kinds of different resources that those organizations offer, and that's why I support them, because they've been organizations that have helped me. And they help a lot of people around the country and around the world with research on our various eye conditions, by giving us the ability to receive the mobility training, by providing us with our canes, by providing us with sunglasses. They provide a lot of things that people don't realize for free. And that's all because of the donations and grants and different things given by the state, the federal government, and general people who care to help out the blind and visually impaired. And it's thanks to them that I actually have my canes and my sunglasses and some of the different resources that I use. How can we improve DAWs and DVWs, or digital audio workstations, digital video workstations? I believe that seeing as how most of these newer apps or programs are coming out already have like speech recognition in it, so you can type out things to have the computer say, I think it should be able to utilize that technology and listen to us to be able to type for us. I believe that when you are working on a video clip and audio clip, that if you're trying to do voiceovers and the video at the same time, that you should be able to zoom them both up rather than just the one. It is not that difficult, in my opinion, seeing how you can already enlarge or shrink them individually. I think it should be set up to where we can have both of them at the same time on the screen without having to scroll between the two being enlarged for us to see it. I also believe that it would be a little bit more convenient and easier to use for those of us that are blind and visually impaired, to make it to where that the menus are a little bit more customizable to where we can see them without having to use a magnifier. We already have the ability to customize the layout, but we do not have the capability of enlarging the text or making the text bold so it's easier to read. And the last one, again, is the high contrast and the dark mode. How do we take care of this? As I said before, I believe it would be easier to get the program, because it's already functioning on other programs. We need to integrate more of the ability of the computer to differentiate between dark mode and high contrast mode on its own, whether it's online or whether in a program. These things already recognize each other in most cases, but not in all cases, so it just needs minor improvement. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click on this one up here. You might like that one as well. Thank you again for watching Consult the Blind Guy. I hope you found this episode helpful and informative. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can stay updated on the latest videos and more. If you're a subscriber, thank you again for coming back and watching. Please comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on these problems and issues. Maybe you have an idea that will help improve on some of these ideas for the problems that we have as blind and visually impaired. Thanks again for watching, everybody. It's greatly appreciated. I love talking to everybody in the comments. We've been having such a great time these last few weeks. I'm sorry that I haven't actually posted in the last 2 because I've been so busy with conferences and stuff. But that brings me to this wonderful little tidbit of news. We'll have more content coming up here real soon to help you content creators out, because I've been talking with some of the influencers within content creation and business growth and been learning a lot the last couple weeks. So I'll be doing some tips and tricks on how we can improve our YouTube channels, alternative sources of income that we might be able to utilize, and much more. So be sure to stick around and subscribe so you get updated on the latest video. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.